Hello and welcome to Birmingham's live Birmingham City podcast. Keep right on. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined by our Blues reporter Alex Dicken. How you doing, Alex?
I was having a nice relaxing morning, Brian, till it all kicked off, but that's why we're here. So yeah, good. A little bit surprised. If we go straight into it, people are obviously going to join us as we're doing this because it's live. A little bit surprised because there is still that 6 point buff between Blues and the relegation zone, but we all saw Leeds, we all saw Bristol City, we all saw Stoke City on Boxing Day, and things were digressing. Things were getting worse. So it's no great surprise when a manager loses 9 games in 15 that he loses his job. So. Yeah, I don't think Wayne Rooney can have any complaints, and I guess you feel the same.
I do. Alex, we all saw Middlesbrough, which was his first game, and that was a massive red flag for me. I think that Blues were functional. No one was accusing Blues, Eustace's Blues, of playing sexy football, but they were functional. They knew what they were doing. And then Rooney came in, and the sweeping change at Middlesbrough, the making the pitch big. The emphasis on trying to keep the ball down on the ground. It was a massive red flag for me. It was such an obvious pothole to fall into. So I know you've been a bit more bullish about the way it's going. Have you? I don't know if that's fair to say. It's felt like you've been more positive because you've probably seen more sort of actual kind of elements to be positive about going home and away with the side that I haven't. But it just never felt right, and I'm not surprised. And actually, I'm going to say it, I'm quite relieved.
No, but based on the last, if we look at the Rooney era as a whole picture, I'm fully in your camp. I don't think he can have any complaints about being sacked. The one just before Christmas, after the Plymouth game. And they had those 3 games, didn't they, against Plymouth, Cardiff and Leicester, where I could see some genuine signs, of improvement. But the next 3 were just awful again. So yeah, that's the way it's been. They've not been able to find any kind of consistency under Rooney. The stats are absolutely damning. I've been doing some research on this over the last few days, and in addition to nine defeats in 15 matches and 10 points from a possible 45, Blues have been the worst team in the Championship during Rooney's time in charge. No team has got fewer points in that time. No team has conceded more goals. Blues have conceded 30 in those 15 matches. No team has a worse goal difference. If we look at, you're looking for signs, aren't you, in that Blues wanted to become a possession-based team. They wanted to play no-fear football, whatever that is. Blues have averaged 41.4% possession under Rooney in comparison to 44.9% possession per game under John Eustace previously. So, there was absolutely nothing really by the end to go off. Nothing to be hopeful about. It had to come, when fans turned in the second half of the Leeds game, quite clear chance of Rooney time to go. Then, the decision had to be made. There was no other way. It wasn't going to work, was it? You could just tell it wasn't.
No, it absolutely wasn't. I think the one surprise, which we'll probably come on to in a bit more depth for me, is that Knighthead have acted so swiftly because there was so much sort of credibility and sort of an emotional investment made around this, around Rooney's appointment. That clearly to me that the big takeaway from this is they are not messing around. You get 15 games, and if you don't perform, you're not there. I'm really relieved that it hasn't just limped on and they've given him a transfer window, because it would have been easy to make excuses and say, oh, these players aren't good enough. But actually, to me, these players were good enough to play a certain way. Dion Sanderson, I know he's coming for a lot of criticism. He was thriving under John Eustace. I think Eustace was just working out how to get the best out of Dembele. I think Jay Stansfield was clearly a much different player under Eustace. Without going back over old ground, and I realise we're probably jumping a little bit here all over the place today because it is an instant reaction. Without going back on old ground, was there a case to get rid of Eustace? Not really in my book, but okay, I can get it. Was there a case to appoint Rooney? not at all in my book, and I think we've seen the fruition of that over the last 3 months. So I just want to ask you, Alex, about Rooney's state. He's obviously mentioned the fact that he felt he didn't have enough time. What's your response to that?
I think 15 games is more than enough. You see other managers who've taken over championship clubs this season. You think Steven Schumacher at Stoke, I think he's got one win and 4 draws from 5 games. There have been others. Millwall changed manager, and that's, although there was a sticky patch, they've started to improve. Sheffield Wednesday, for me, the big one. They took Danny Roll, and he's pretty much untried as a manager, hadn't really been a head coach before. And they had won 1 game in 17 after that Blues defeat at the end of November. They've now won 6 games this season. They beat Hull City on New Year's Day. They're only 6 points behind Blues. That's what a manager can do. If you get it right, and that's put Blues in an awkward position, because now Blues, having been so comfortable earlier in the season in their position in the league table, 6 points above the drop zone, and looking over their shoulder. And the next managerial appointment, it has to be right. It has to be the right one. You can't have another Rooney who loses 8-9 games in 15, because then you are going to be in massive trouble. You're going to be at the bottom of the league by March or April, whenever they come to make another decision like this. So that's it. That's the crux of it. Rooney, I don't think he could say that he didn't have enough time, because he had enough time to show us something. And, if we're looking at games like Plymouth and Ipswich, where, yes, the football was better, but at the end of the day, we're probably just clinging on to a little bit of hope, weren't we? It wasn't that good. Blues were still shipping goals, 30 goals in 15 games, for God's sake. Less possession than under Eustace. Every single statistic was down. Yeah. So they were only heading one way. They had to make that call now.
Okay, so Alex, who 15 games, there were 2 wins, a couple of promising draws in there, I'll concede that. How many times were they the better team over the 90 minutes?
Even the Sheffield Wednesday game, Sheffield Wednesday could have been 3 up at half time. They could have quite easily been 3 up at half time. You think to the Rotherham game, that was embarrassing. That was the worst of them for me. Stoke was abysmal. The only game that I saw a really convincing performance where Birmingham City were the better team for 90 minutes than their opponent was Cardiff. That was the one. Yeah. That was the one. They were good and controlled that night. As some people pointed out, it was probably more of a Eustace team than a Rooney team that was selected that night. I saw good things in that performance, to be fair, but it's not enough. You can't have one game in 15 where the team actually looks comfortable and like it has a coherent plan to win a football match. They've been so poor under Rooney, and like you said earlier, I'm struggling. I've struggled to blame the players, because I know how good they were in the previous 11 matches under Eustace, when they all clearly knew their roles and responsibilities, what jobs they were doing. You can pick out so many. The one player who has improved under Rooney is Jordan James, because he simply wasn't involved under Eustace. If you look at players like Dion Sanderson, Kevin Long's been shipped out the team.
John Ruddy, for heaven's sake.
John Ruddy was fantastic at the beginning of the season. Koji Miyoshi was really influential in certain games. Siriki Dembele was influential in almost every game he started. Jay Stansfield was fantastic. There was so much to be hopeful about in those first 2 months of the season. It's all kind of disintegrated in the last 2.5 months.
Yeah, indeed. We've got loads of comments here. We could spend the next 2 hours talking through all these comments. So we're gonna sort of move through what we think might happen next, if that's okay. And if we do have time at the end, I know Alex is a very, very busy man. Then we will try and get to some of the comments as well. So Alex, the names in the frame now. What are you hearing? And just throw a few names. I either A, would be interested, or B, Blues would be interested in them.
So we've heard the name before Rooney got sacked was Steve Cooper, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Steve Cooper, ex-Nottingham Forest manager, obviously got them promoted from the Championship, stabilised in the Premier League. It's pretty much a miracle promotion as well from the Championship. He is, I think we spoke about before we came on air, he's the absolute dream, isn't he? But the fear there is, I think he's probably a Premier League manager in waiting still. He's been heavily linked with Crystal Palace. Blues will really have a job on their hands to tempt him back down to the Championship. A more interesting name, probably Jesse Marsch, the former Leeds manager. Obviously, the US connection there. Might be difficult to lure him into the Championship as well, given that he's managing the Champions League and also obviously in the Premier League for a couple of seasons. He'd be probably a good fit for United in terms of a name they could sell to a US audience if they do want to pursue that further. Because, we knew that was obviously a big thing with them and Rooney in the first place. Then after that, I think there's a few names going around, Tony Mowbray, people like that, obviously the runners and riders, people who've had done well in Championship jobs previously. Mowbray probably a little bit more, his football's a little bit more easy on the eye than some of the other names who we're going to come on to. But yeah, as far as we're aware, people like John Eustace, Gary Rowett would also be interested in this job, and it's going to be a job that's going to interest a lot of managers. But those two, obviously local, have managed the club before, would both obviously be interested. There's going to be a lot more as well. There's probably going to be managers who've managed Blues before as well, who may also be interested in getting this job back. But
come back, Harry. Come back, Harry. All is forgiven.
Not that one. Not that one. Eustace, obviously, he was linked with the Stoke job. Was in the running for that one before Schumacher got it. He's obviously local. We know he knows how to get a tune out of this group of players, but would United go back down that route? I highly doubt that, because that would completely, make it all even more of a laughing stock. But it would make for a great Netflix documentary.
The John Eustace story would be would be absolutely worth telling. I think John Eustace would be interested. As you say, I just don't see. I don't see United climbing down, and I think probably some of the relationships behind the scenes became fractured when Eustace was sacked. So, I think there'd need to be some juggling done there. So I'd be up for that. I'm not going to lie, I would be up for it, but I don't think that's going to happen. Gary Rowett, I think, would be Gary Rowett would be interested. Would he be interesting to a degree? Yeah, I think. Listen, going from Eustace because of whatever reason, the brand of football or whatever, to Rooney and to Gary Rowett, there seems a little bit like lurching around one style to the next sort of thing. Gary Rowett would undoubtedly come in, get Blues organised, get them playing a decent football, not scintillating. And if you look at Millwall, similar, their budget wasn't massive. He actually got them challenging for the playoffs. So I think Gary Rowett would probably get Blues moving in the right way. Is he the name, though, if we're still thinking that United want a name, is he the name that sells in the States? Potentially not.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I think when we're looking at the managerial contenders, you're probably going to have to consider that element as well. It's not really important to us. It's not important to the people who are on this Facebook Live, listening to this podcast. But United clearly do want to attract an American audience, and John Eustace clearly wasn't their man for that. Wayne Rooney they thought was, but ultimately results decide fates in this game. So I think we're gonna probably end up with a hybrid. Someone who has a better track record than Rooney had, but also someone who's a big enough name to lure in a bigger audience from the United States. And that's why I mentioned Jesse Marsch earlier, because he's been out of work for a while now, and he would have that ability to create that interest from people over in the US.
Jesse Marsch is interesting to me. His Leeds team were pretty high octane, weren't they? They were very, very energetic. I think he'd probably need some players in to make that work in the short term, unless he was going to go back to Eustonian principles and slowly evolve the side. Just before we came on here, I was looking back at an interview that Jesse Marsch gave to the Daily Mail, and he's basically said in that interview, I will never play boring football. So that might be something that the Blues board want to hear. I wouldn't dismiss that out of hand, I have to say. I would be interested in that, because he is I was going to say he's young. He's 50, so he's not young, but he's young. He's new to the Premier League. He's relatively fresh to the Championship and British football, isn't he? So, yeah, I think that one would be interesting. I wonder if Lee Carsley always tends to be talked about in this situation. I mean, I would imagine Carsley could have had the job 2 or 3 times over, but has never taken it. It's not something that really fills me with massive excitement, to be honest, because of the track record thing. I know he had a good spell as a caretaker at Brentford, and he is very much viewed as a progressive and a progressive coach whose style is exciting. Is he a number one, sort of the biggest voice in the room? I'm not sure that is the case. Steve Cooper, like you, I think he has higher targets, and I think he probably will end up will stay in the Premier League whenever that might be. Of the names that are being thrown at us, Tony Mowbray is one that's caught my eye. I do like Tony Mowbray I think he's a very good football manager, and I think his style would go some way to what the Blues board wants as well. I wouldn't be against that at all. You know, it would be relatively pleased with that. Somebody's mentioned Graham Potter on here. Again, I think that would be a big stretch. You know, Potter was linked with some Premier League jobs relatively recently, and it was sort of suggested that he wouldn't go back in at a relegation level in the Premier League. So I don't see him sort of drifting down to the lower regions of the Championship. Is Blues an attractive job, Alex? Do you think? I mean, clearly it wasn't under the previous owners when there was a management change every 9 months. It's different now, though, isn't it?
I think it's a more attractive job now than it probably to a lot of managers than it would have been when Wayne Rooney took it back in October, because I think a lot of managers will look at this squad now and look at the job Rooney's done and think they can't do any worse, that it's a win-win situation. So there's going to be so many, I think, that will be, the ones out of work, the ones we've mentioned, your Rowett's, your Eustaces, your Tony Mowbrays, maybe Jesse March, but a lot of guys who've, had experience in the Championship before will be interested in this job. It just depends what route Blues want to go down. Do they want a bigger name? Do they want a younger coach? You look now and there's people like Will Still, who's done well at Reims over in France, getting linked with a lot of the Championship gigs that come up over here. So will he be, someone that Blues look at? I mean, I remember listening to some of the things that Gary Cook and Craig Gardner were saying at the open house event about being data-driven. And if you are being data-driven, then you're not going for a name, are you? Going for the guy with the best track record and, the best chance of implementing the philosophy that you want. So yeah, it's difficult. There's a lot of good names out there. I still think Blues is an attractive job, particularly because of the ownership group, the people involved with the ownership group, and also the city, the promise of a potential new stadium in the years ahead. I think you can build something at Blues. I think it's a good Championship club that you can build something out, and also realistically, you can't really do much worse than what's been done in recent years either. So the only way is up, you'd think anyway. Yeah,
absolutely. I do think Knighthead will get the club where they want it. They're talking about a 10-year plan, aren't they? It may take that long. It may take even longer, but I do think they'll get there. But their first managerial appointment has been a bit of a disaster, and there's been a naivety there. But eventually, if they do keep investing, as we believe they will, and as certainly all the talk is they will, that financial gravity, for once, Blues will be on the right end of financial gravity with investment that will inevitably drag them up the Championship and hopefully into the Premier League. So, yeah, this is certainly not a cheap shot or a dig at Knighthead. And indeed, at the top of the show, and said that I applauded them for acting as decisively as they have. Alex, I want to flash one up here, and a suggestion. Michael Forsell, would that not be the stuff of dream? Would that be the stuff of dreams? I think he may fail on the track record side of things, but in terms of romance, that would be. I mean, the press conference would be amazing. What about this one, Alex? I'm going to chuck another name up there for you. Neil Warnock would be a good choice. Response to that? Nervous cough from you there.
No, I was just giggling from your Mikel Forsell one because I know how much you love him. I
do.
Warnock is your trial and tested, isn't he? But he's not going to bring you great football like United will want. As far as we go, it'd be great value. I think in press conferences either way. He's obviously, I think he's got 4 or 5 promotions on his CV. I think he's probably the most successful Championship manager ever on paper. I can't see that one, to be honest. I don't think Blues aren't in the position of needing a firefighter as such. I don't think they can probably still, they're still in a comfortable enough position to get someone with the long term in mind. I think at this stage, there's still 6 points between themselves and the relegation zone. So, I can't see Neil Warnock.
No, I think the Warnock appointment, you're right. That's the one you make when you're in the relegation zone and you are absolutely firefighting. I don't think Blues are in that situation yet. There's so many names coming through.
There are a lot of names.
Really some interesting ones. Rafa Benitez, Mark Robbins. Mark Robbins would be interesting. Obviously, he's well ensconced in Coventry, and he's got them moving again, hasn't he? He's lost Gyökeres and Gustavo Hamer in the summer. They're 2 best players, and yes, it's taken some time, but he's got them moving again. A good manager. Just a word on Gary Cook. There's been a lot of people talking about Gary Cook here. People saying he should be sacked, or it's embarrassing for him. I'm not. As much as it would be, entertaining for everybody and those people with an axe to grind, I don't think Blues should be getting rid of Gary Cook. It's been so long since they've had, a decent frontline, authentic blue chip chief executive, as a sensible player in leading them off the pitch. However, he will have had his collar felt. Do you think? How do you think Knighthead will be viewing Gary Cook at the moment?
Well, obviously, the decision to appoint Wayne Rooney has been a complete, unmitigated disaster, hasn't it? I mean, 9 defeats in 15 matches says it all. I don't think you can hide from that. I think the next appointment he makes is going to have to work. Simple as that. Fans aren't going to stand for it. And given how successful Tom Wagner and United want Birmingham City to be, then, they won't stand for it either. It's on. I suppose Gary Cook's the man running the club. He's the man who makes these big decisions. United have done a lot of good things in their short time, mainly off the field. The problem we all had back in October was that, Blues and Gary Cook made a call they didn't really need to. There are enough issues, enough things that can kick you in football without going to make a call that you really don't need to, and that's what they did there. So he's going to probably justifiably get some criticism. And it's down to the next call, to the next managerial appointment he makes needs to be a good one.
Of course, he should be given the opportunity to rectify that mistake. Absolutely. There comes a point where you have to say Blues need stability, and that's in every department of the club. And for me, we're not even close to that. Over 3 managers through in 9 months, and maybe serious questions have to be asked, but at the moment it's uncomfortable for him, but I wouldn't say much more particularly. There's tons of names here. Sorry we can't get to all of your comments. I think we have to release Alex to actually go and do some work rather than chatting about football. Thank you everybody for your interest. Do stay tuned. Sorry if we didn't get to your question or your point. I should have started at the top of the show by saying Happy New Year, which of course that applies to everybody. Alex will release you to go and see what happens next in the never-ending soap opera that is Birmingham City. Thanks everyone for their time, and thank you, Alex, for your time as well. So it's a keep right on from me and a
keep right on from me. Thanks everyone.